Over the past several years, I've combined my degrees in acting and somatic psychology to share my sustaining creativity techniques with performers. And now I've decided to share it with a bigger audience that includes you. I believe we are all creative, and this podcast is all about that. I'll be interviewing people from all backgrounds, ages, and creativity experiences to share just how creative we all are. Today, I'll be chatting with Alan Katz, movie and TV writer, producer, and now proud podcaster. Please enjoy Alan Katz. Welcome to the Sustaining Creativity Podcast. Today I'm chatting with Alan Katz, movie and TV writer and producer, and now a proud podcaster. Welcome to the Sustaining Creativity Podcast.
Thank you so much. It is such a pleasure to be here. Thank you for having me.
I am thrilled to chat with you and dig into your creative journey and your creative life. Before we get there, why don't you let our listeners know a little bit about who you are and what it is you do?
I guess my claim to fame, such as it is, as you pointed out, I've written and produced movies and TV shows. I wrote and produced an iconic show on HBO called Tales From The Crypt.
Mm-hmm.
And while I did not create the show, I did not create the show, I did co-create The Crypt Keeper.
Oh.
And that is a story unto itself. We will definitely touch upon it. My creative journey, gosh, I succeeded beyond all my wildest dreams when I did that. That turned into two crypt themed feature films, a great movie called Demon Knight, and then the second Tales from the Crypt feature film, which is called Bordello of Blood. And that was the antithesis of everything that had happened before that.
Mm-hmm.
And it sent me into a 2-decade-long spiral into a deepening depression and a writer's block I did not even know I was in.
Yeah.
And we'll come back to this moment.
Okay.
We'll come back to this moment because success followed by failure, followed by, well, I grew up on the East Coast, and I went to Vassar. I was a drama major. I thought I was going to be theater New York, and New York was the center of my universe. I grew up in Baltimore, and I had a friend from school who had become an agent at William Morris in Los Angeles. And her name was Carol Yumkis, and Carol said to me, knowing that I've been writing professionally since I was 16.
Mm-hmm.
I've always taken writing for granted because it's just something I was always able to do. So Carol said, why don't you try writing a screenplay? I said, okay. So I wrote a screenplay. She said, this is pretty good. She could come out and meet and greet people. So in June 1985, I flew out for a week to meet and greet people. That was New York theater. And to me, LA was the stupidest fucking place on the planet.
Right.
The land of the avocado head. But, it was June. Now, June in New York, it's hot, it's humid, every place smelled like piss. In LA, it's the desert. There's no humidity. The weather's fantastic. And this was 40 years ago, a lot less crowded than it is today. And the people were so nice to me, copious amounts of smoke blown up my ass. One night, Carol took me to a movie premiere, St. Elmo's Fire, because William Morris represented it.
Yeah.
And that was a backstage view of a lot of, hey, this could be you, pal.
Yeah.
The next morning, I didn't have any meetings. Someone at the party after the premiere said, you should take a drive through Topanga Canyon. It's really beautiful. The Topanga Canyon section it's within the LA city limits. It's beautiful. It's a lot more crowded today than it was then. But the drive through Topanga Canyon from the 101, the freeway through the Santa Monica Mountains, as they plunge into the water, the Pacific Ocean, the Pacific Coast Highway. By the time I got to the water, New York, I had been completely seduced by LA. And I moved out the next month, and my creative journey took a completely different path than I ever thought it was going to take. Among the first people I met that first week was a guy named Gil Adler. And Gil became my best friend for a decade and my creative partner. And I ended up making my money and my prestige in horror and sci-fi. I'm a comedy guy. I wrote comedy, and Gil also was comedy. He came out of theater in New York. He produced theater, and he had trained as an accountant. And so he understood that if you have $1 to make your movie or TV show, don't spend $1. You haven't got it. Now, if you can make your TV show, let's call it, for 99 cents, still make it look like $1. That's good. Or 98 cents. Hey, what if you could do it for 97 cents, make it look like $1.01 or $1.02? Now you're on to something. The creative process is problem solving. And so Gil's answer to solving creative problems was not throw money at it, was throw more creativity at it. Well, that was my solution to the problem. So we bonded and we made a great creative team. Because he was a strong, responsible producer, HBO, who had just begun to play with original programming, hired Gil to produce a series called The Hitchhiker for them up in Vancouver. And they had a problem production a little while later, a thing called Vietnam War Stories, which was shooting in Savannah. It was way over budget, over schedule, and they sent Gil to try to fix it, and he fixed it. And not only did he fix it, it won awards. And a little while later, they had another high prestige money production that had gone horribly off the rails, and they wanted Gil to come in and fix it. And that was called Tales from the Crypt. Now, the way that TV shows work, back in the early 90s, when Tales from the Crypt came about, HBO, well, TV was a very different landscape. The entertainment business was a very different landscape. Back then, movies were here and TV shows were way the fuck over here. And one did not travel freely back and forth between them as one does now. The occasional Tom Hanks or Robin Williams would go from TV into the movies, but if you were going from movies into the TV world, that meant your career was done.
Right.
So they're different worlds. HBO just begun dipping their toe into creative programming. It was mostly movies, but they had a show called First and 10, another one called Dream On. But these were basically just single camera shows with tits and the word fuck. Take those out. They were basically just network ready single camera shows in every way, shape, and form. They were small. Suddenly, these 4 Hollywood mega producers, Joel Silver, Richard Donner, Walter Hill, Bob Zemeckis, approach HBO with a passion project, a comic book they loved from their boyhoods, Tales from the Crypt. That whole series of horror comics published by Bill Gaines. And they said, we want to put a future vision of this thing we love in your little TV box. HBO jumped up and down and said, sure. And so these movie producers who had no idea how to make a TV show went right to work writing scripts for production. There was no development process to figure out the workflow. All right, how do you take a franchise from one medium, all the things you love about a comic book, Tales from the Crypt, and translate them into a completely different medium? It doesn't happen by itself. You have to do it, and then you have to make sure that all the elements are there in every script. There was no development process, no one doing that. All right, the other thing that they didn't do conventionally was normally, in order to pay for the cost of production of a TV show, whatever the network is paying for the license fee for the first time they show it, the second time they show it, it's not going to pay for the cost of production. And so you get a deficit partner to pay for the actual cost of production until you get to profitability, whether it's through syndication or whatever means you're going to do it. These 4 feature guys didn't do anything like that. They just started spending money, and HBO was cash flowing the thing. Well, the first season was small. It was 3 episodes, which are brilliant, and then the back 3, and then HBO ordered 18 for a second season and a third season of 13. And they went right into production, no development of any kind. And so no one was minding the store in terms of the franchise.
Right.
They weren't minding the budget either. HBO was cash flowing the whole thing. The night before the wrap party, HBO handed the executive producers a financial statement that said, guys, you're $1 million cash in the hole. If you want that season 3, and there was lots of money for the executive producers in season 3, pay us the money you owe us. The executive producers promptly canceled the wrap party, fired everybody, got out their checkbooks, and paid HBO the $1 million. to have their third season. HBO said, we want this guy, Gil Adler, to take it over because he'll be responsible. I was Gil's writing partner. And so since there was no one doing the story editor, the minding of the franchise, they said, we don't care. Sure, hire him. And so though I really did not have the bona fides to be the showrunner on Tales from the Crypt, I became the showrunner of Tales from the Crypt. I had two jobs. My first job was to be the franchise person, to make sure that we translated the franchise onto every frame of our TV series. So
yeah,
every script had to go through me. I was the last typist before it went to our department heads, before it went to casting. I was the final arbiter of the words and the vision. My other job was to write the Crypt Keeper segments.
Huh?
Well, just as there was no development for the series, there's no development for the Crypt Keeper. The Crypt Keeper in the comic books is an old white guy with stringy hair.
Yeah.
The executive producers wanted their own. And one day, purely by happenstance, one of the executive producers, Joel Silver, bumped into a special effects wizard named Kevin Yeager at a storage facility. And Kevin got hired to create a Crypt Keeper. And Kevin Yeager created the Crypt Keeper puppet. And Kevin then found John Kassir to be the puppet's voice. But no one ever asked the question, who is he? Whoever wrote the scripts threw words at the Crypt Keeper, and for the first 24 episodes, pretty much whatever tumbled out of his mouth. My job was to write for him.
Yeah.
And I don't know how you write for a character who isn't. And so just to do my damn job, I had to create a character for him.
Right.
I grew up loving old movies. I loved the Marx Brothers. And so the Crypt Keeper became my little Groucho. And having to fill him with a personality and being a writer and therefore somewhat lazy, I reached for the closest personality at hand, which was mine. And so though he looks like Kevin's puppet and he sounds like John's voice, every thought in his head, every word that tumbled from his mouth was me. And I wrote every word he said.
Yeah.
And so over the course of the third season, which was supposed to be the last, something changed. We reinvigorated the franchise because, yeah, that became part of our focus. We went back to hiring stars, big names, because it's supposed to be feature in little
Yeah.
box.
Yeah.
Not whoever you can get to be in your damn show. But the other thing that happened was that the Crypt Keeper suddenly became, well, he went from being the puppet to being the Crypt Keeper, the franchise. And that was the thing that I don't think anybody expected. He did become the franchise. But the success, the Crypt Keeper turning around, suddenly we got a bunch. We ended up doing seven seasons. Universal got excited. They said, well, we love the franchise. Let's do Crypt branded feature films. And we set out, we're riding an incredible creative wave here. Now, like I said, Gil and I both came out of comedy. We weren't horror guys, and we were desperately, when we were afraid that the town was going to pigeonhole us as horror guys. And so we saw the feature films as a way to break out. Now, the partners wanted to do straight horror for the first movie. For a little while, we toyed with doing Quentin Tarantino's From Dusk Till Dawn, but we couldn't make a deal with Quentin. So ultimately, we went with a script called Demon Knight, which turned out quite well. Gil didn't want to direct that, so Ernest Dickerson got hired. Terrific director in his own right. He was Spike Lee's former director of photography, an incredibly talented man. Billy Zane is the villain. He's amazing. Jada Pinkett, Bill Sadler are the heroes. It's a great cast. Terrific movie. Gil and I had begun developing something that would show the town we were more multifaceted. We had developed a psychological thriller called Dead Easy, which was a taut psychological thriller about a recovered memory. It took place in the swamps outside New Orleans. A great franchise villain, this Harlequin character. We spent 18 months developing it. Universal must have been down with it because we were spending their money on it. We spent 6 months in New Orleans prepping. We were casting. We'd hired a young unknown actor named Salma Hayek to play the female lead. 3 weeks before the start of principal photography in New Orleans. We're all in New Orleans prepping the movie. Universal calls and says, they told us, stop spending money, come home. You're not making that movie. So we get on a plane, we go back to Los Angeles, and they stick a script under our noses called Bordello of Blood. Guys, your release date hasn't changed. You still start shooting in 3 weeks. Get to work revising the script and making and getting it ready. Well,
Oh my goodness.
Where did Bordello come from? Well, at about this time, a new studio called DreamWorks had come into being. And that was Steven Spielberg leaving his deal, not the lot at Universal, and setting up shop as a studio. Universal was desperately afraid of losing another big piece of talent. One of my executive producers, Bob Zemeckis. Steven Spielberg was his mentor. And Universal approached Bob. They said, Bob, and I don't know, any other part of the deal obviously was good enough. He stayed. I know one deal point. Universal Pictures agreed to pay $500,000, $500,000 for the first student script that Bob Zemeckis and Bob Gale, the future Back to the Future guys, ever wrote when they were students, film students at USC. That was it. Just a way to put money in Bob's pocket as a way to, hey, here's the deal.
Yeah.
But Universal then found themselves thinking, well, are we just going to eat $500,000? Wait a second. Bob was about to executive produce this other horror movie, this dead easy thing. What we spent $50,000 on that script. Fuck it, we'll take it out of their budget. Guys, you now are going to make Bordello of Blood. Look, it's got Bob Zemeckis and Bob Gale's name on it. That's bigger than A.L. Katz and Gil Adler. Get to work. And so we went from making a movie that we had all been working on for 18 months, a movie that we saw as a career, that was the career direction we wanted to head in.
Yeah.
Not just Gil and I, but the whole creative team. And suddenly we're making a fucking student movie. Well, once you, from the top, you are now being directed to do something you got no skin in that game, except that go make the movie. You have no choice because, you're going to say no, you want to make more Tales from the Crypt? Go do the fucking movie. You suddenly feel yourself between a rock and a hard place. And we went, making Tales from the Crypt was, anyone who did that show would tell you, the creative, one of the creative peaks of their creative life, because we had so much freedom.
Yeah.
Over the 70 some odd episodes that I wrote and produced, I got 3 notes from HBO.
Wow.
Incredible freedom.
Yeah.
And suddenly here we were doing this project for all the wrong reasons. Well, don't be surprised when every day is stupider than the day before it.
Yeah.
And literally my career went from being pitched in one direction to now I'm making a movie I couldn't give a fuck about.
Right.
But the problem was I was being paid as a producer, and I was not a good producer on that movie. I was a terrible producer on that movie because I didn't want to be there. I didn't want to be doing it.
Yeah.
And suddenly everyone took their eye off the ball, the executive producers too. Gil and I wanted to cast the leads a particular way, and Joel took over the casting. And I don't know why we cast Dennis Miller as the lead. I couldn't tell you to this day. Our audience didn't give a fuck about Dennis Miller. Dennis didn't want to do the movie. He said, all right, I'll do it for $1 million, figuring no one in their right mind would pay Dennis $1 million. But Joel had Dennis in his head, and for some reason he said, yeah. Well, we had $500,000 for the lead. I didn't have $1 million. We're a $12 million movie. We went to Universal. We said, can we get some breakage? And they said, we don't know why you hired Dennis Miller. We don't give a fuck about Dennis Miller. No, take it out of your budget. And so we're a special effects, we're a monster movie. All the money is in makeup special effects. We took the money out of makeup special effects, the thing our audience was going to come to see, to pay an actor they didn't give a fuck about.
Right.
Where is this decision making coming from? What's the impetus of that? It's not like Joel said, look, here's why I think Dennis is brilliant. That never happened. All right. The female lead. All right. I know why Joel wanted us to hire Erica Eleniak. It's not who we wanted, but she was in a committed relationship. She was never going to have anything to do with it. And just after we hired her, she decided she didn't want to be that kind of actress in this kind of movie. And so just to get her to get on an airplane, because we were already shooting, when she suddenly decided she wasn't going to do it, we had to rewrite the script while we were in production to accommodate her. Totally inorganic reasons. Finally, the reason we hired, the villain in your movie is the most important part. And we hired Angie Everhart, who is a lovely person, because at the same time that we were about to make Bordello in Vancouver, Joel, our executive producer, was executive producing another movie called Assassins in Seattle. And that starred Antonio Banderas and Sylvester Stallone. And Stallone approached Joel on the set one day and he said, "Hey, Joel, you're going to make a movie in Vancouver. Why don't you put my girlfriend Angie in the movie? That way we can visit each other across the border." And Joel, instead of being a responsible executive producer and saying, "That's a great idea, Sly, but let me check with the guys to make sure it works for them," he said, "That's a great idea, Sly," period. And so he committed us to hiring Sly's girlfriend for a completely, had nothing to do with our movie, so they could visit each other across the border.
Yeah. I mean,
Now,
what a nutty
I mean,
thing to try and navigate.
Now the thing, in Angie's total defense, it's nothing to do with her. The thing about acting, I've hired lots and lots of actors. I've never hired any actor to act, not for the camera. Acting in the theater is important because the people in the back row got to see and hear you, so you have to act. But the camera's right in your face. If you act, the camera will see it. We're going to have to cut it out. I hire, for movies and TV, actors to be who they are as authentically as they possibly can be. So that we'll give them a different name, put some words in their mouth, but at key moments, they need to be able to get in full touch with their emotional, true emotions.
Yeah.
Because that's what we need to see. We need to see them being.
Right.
And so Billy Zane is a great villain in Demon Knight. He's a great villain in Titanic because Billy's not a villain, but there's something villainous in him that he taps into. He's egomaniacal, truly. But that's why he's a successful actor. He has this thing inside himself to tap into. He does not have to act because that would never work. Angie is a lovely human being, top to bottom. There is not a villainous anything inside her. And so for Angie to perform the villain, she had to act it. There's the problem. Angie, even if she had been, she was not a trained actress, so she didn't have anything to fall back on, not even technical skill to approximate what this thing would be that was not inside her. She's acting the whole time.
Yeah.
And the camera sees it the whole time, and there's nothing to cut to. It's not her fault. It's on us.
Right.
We had no business hiring, but we didn't hire her because Joel said, "I see something." He hired her because he was trying to make an actor on one set happy.
Yeah.
And so the making Bordello was a catastrophe.
Yeah.
Creatively, it's a mediocre little horror movie. The audience has no idea of the fraught bullshit that went on making it, but in the same way that Tales from the Crypt changed the direction that I was going in, Bordello of Blood changed it in the other direction. And we did not make we could have made the release date, but Universal didn't care anymore. And we didn't make our Halloween. They held us to the following August. They dropped us in August. By the time they released the movie to no business, I was no longer speaking to Gil Adler. We had broken up, very tremendous acrimony. And my best friend and my creative partner, we didn't speak for 25 years. I started down a 2-decade-long descent into a deepening depression and a writer's block I didn't even know I was in. We're back to that point. And Bordello of Blood was instrumental in making
the
that
tipping
happen.
point. Yeah. I'm curious.
Yes.
This long trajectory and all of the pieces, moving parts, what was the creative, like throughout this whole experience, what did it mean to you to be creative and what happened to your creativity?
We will, I will answer that question.
Okay.
That is literally, you are anticipating where we are going. Bravo. Really and truly. I lost touch with the writer in me over those 2 decades. I raised my kids, and that's best thing I'll ever the two best things I'll ever make are my kids, bar none. Nothing I write will ever touch it. But I still craved. But I've been cast off the mountain, and it's impossible to get back on the mountain. When you've been cast off all my contacts. Really, Gil got all the relationships.
Yeah,
I got nothing. And 3 days before Christmas 2016, I came within literal inches of killing myself.
Mm. Mm.
I knew I was heading in that direction. I knew I needed medication, but medication terrified me. My dad was a physician. I was a surgeon, and I grew up in the culture. I knew that my GP had no knowledge of the mood stabilizers that I needed. The last pharmaceutical rep who walked through his office said, "He got me depressed patients, and give them some of this, see if it helps." Well,
Mm.
mood stabilizers are all a lab experiment.
Mm.
It doesn't matter. We really don't know how
Mhm.
they work. We just don't. And so each and every one is 6 to 8 weeks of seeing whether it helps or hurts.
Yeah.
I didn't want to be a lab experiment where no one had done any research. So I did my own research, and now I knew I was at the point where, okay, you're there, you've crossed the line, you will do something stupid without even thinking about it. So I went to my GP. I said, "Here's what I want to do. Here's what I'd like you to write. Please write me this prescription." He whipped out his smartphone. He said, "Yeah, okay, that makes sense." He wrote the prescription. I picked it up, went home, told my family what I was going to do, and I took that first dose. And then I got lucky. The
Mm.
lamotrigine, the one I chose, it worked.
Yeah.
And within 36 hours, I leveled.
Mm.
I felt the medication worked. It put the darkness in a, not a box, but a cage. And it's still there.
Mhm.
The darkness is absolutely still there, but it can reach through the bars, but it can't get at me.
Mhm.
And once the darkness couldn't get at me, the self-loathing rage,
Mhm.
self-loathing, I could confront what was bothering me. Why did I come apart at the seams during
Mm.
Bordello of Blood? Where was this total lack of confidence really in the
Yeah.
human being? It turned out I was keeping a secret from myself for 45 years.
Mm.
That when I was 14, I was sexually molested twice by the religious director at the synagogue where my family belonged outside of Baltimore.
Mhm.
Now, the first time is bad, but it's the second time that really baited the hook and set that
Mhm.
hook, because the second time happened because I didn't say anything the first time.
Yeah.
And the second time is happening that I know what my reaction was. You did this to yourself. You brought
Mm.
this upon yourself. And so
Mm.
now every bad thing that happens to you, you did this to yourself, whether you did this to yourself or not, because certainly in the first time, I did not do that to myself.
Yeah.
This
Yeah.
was an adult doing something to me, but
Mhm.
now you've created the template. And then you get into adulthood and worsen, bad things happen. Well, if that's going to be how you see it and how you approach it, you're going to be taking an awful lot of blame for things you shouldn't be taking blame for. That's not solving the problem in any direction,
Right.
but it becomes incredibly self-destructive. Well,
Mhm.
now that I suddenly stopped beating the shit out of myself for something I had no business doing, having confronted the secret, it is so true what they say about the truth setting you free.
Mhm.
If you can't tell your story to you,
Yeah.
can you really tell anybody else's story? No, you can't. And the biggest transformation that I went through, I went from being, I think, a very talented writer to being a storyteller.
Yeah.
And that was something I didn't see that coming. I didn't see that coming. It became important to tell my story because keeping it a secret had done me no good.
Yeah.
Well, now that I could tell my own story with balls to the wall honesty, I could tell anybody else's story with the same balls to the wall honesty.
Mhm.
During the pandemic, a Tales from the Crypt fan group, 3 guys from across the country, they started doing a podcast called Dads from the Crypt.
Mm.
They review all the episodes of Tales from the Crypt, and they give parenting advice. One of the dads, Jason Stein, reached out to me. He said, "Hey, we're going to be reviewing one of the episodes you wrote. You want to sit in with us?" I said, "Yeah, sounds like fun." And yeah, it was fun. We had a great time. He reached out to me a couple of weeks later. He said, "We're going to be reviewing Bordello of Blood. You want to sit in again?" I said, "Jason, the story of the making of Bordello of Blood is not a half-hour conversation with you. It's a podcast unto itself." And that's how I started making my first podcast, the How Not to Make a Movie podcast. The first
Yeah.
season was the making of Bordello of Blood. And
Oh.
I've been telling the stories for 2 decades. That was my mini catharsis. Now I had a chance to have a major catharsis by
Mhm.
telling the story with balls to the wall honesty, because Dennis, I wanted to call to task because we paid you $1 million. You could afford to be a nice person. Stallone, I wanted to call out because he had used our movie. He had intended to break up with her, and we were the consolation prize. And that is, in fact, what happened. 2/3 of the way through the movie, he broke up with her, and he said to her, "Hey, I got your movie, didn't I?" Otherwise, really, everyone else, I think, behaved fantastically. I really wanted to take me to task.
Yeah.
I was a terrible producer, and I needed to own every last bit of that. In order to tell the story, of course, I was going to have to reach out to my old friend and partner, Gil Adler. And I did. And I said, look, here's the deal, though. We have not talked about our breakup and all of that. I said, I want to do it live on mic. And he hesitated, but he agreed to do it.
Okay.
And it was because we told the story with such balls to the wall honesty that Entertainment Weekly called it the best film podcast of 2022.
Yeah.
Clark Collis, the guy who penned those very kind words, he said it was the honesty. As I went into a second and third season, I really enjoyed the podcasting process. There was less storytelling in the second and third and fourth seasons. It was more about just conversations with everyone I've worked with in the business about the joy of our craft and what happens when our craft turns to crap. But a friend from school approached me with a true story that had happened to him. And when he told me the story, he wanted to turn it into a TV series. I said, no, you don't. It's going to take you years to write it. And then years and years and years. And there are thousands of assholes standing in the way. And at any point, any one of the assholes can kill the project dead just because they're an asshole. Doing it as a podcast, there's only one asshole standing in my way, and it's me. And so long as I'm willing to do the work, all right, I got to find the audience. I got to help the audience find it. But okay, I'll take that. One can do this as a one-person band.
Yeah. I
like that. And so when he said, let me tell your story, because when you hear what it's about, there's a lot of, he has to protect everyone's privacy. My friend, let's call him Hal, worked his way through medical school in the mid-1990s as an anonymous sperm donor. Jump forward 27 years, he's a successful radiologist. He joined a 23andMe, curious about his health genes. It never occurred to him the ramifications of adding his DNA to a growing DNA database. That's what 23andMe and Ancestry are. He lost his donor anonymity. Suddenly, 7 total strangers found daddy, except 6 of them had no idea their actual biological father was sperm donors. How? Well, it got even more complicated. One of the daughters, the 7th, she brought a thing called genetic sexual attraction to the table, which is a very real thing. Genetic sexual attraction, people who are genetically related to each other, but who are not raised together when they meet each other later in life. It is not unusual for there to be an intense emotional relationship and sometimes sex. The coin was turned by a woman named Barbara Gagne, who gave up a son for adoption when she was 16. She met him 25 years later, fell head over heels in love with him. And he fell in love with her. She was quite ready to have sex with him. He was not quite there. But she coined the term genetic sexual attraction to describe this, the most powerful emotion she said she had ever felt in her entire life. And so that also entered the tent here. It was a hand grenade. And this guy was looking to have a relationship with these. He was open to having he couldn't be their father, but he could be fatherly. And this destroyed everything. I had never heard a story like this in my entire life. And I have a taste for weird stories, right?
Yeah.
As I was telling Hal's story, I discovered I had become the thing I always wanted to be when I grew up, and that was a podcaster. I loved telling the story, his story, any story in the medium, because you can tell it with absolute honesty.
Yeah.
And what I especially love is the intimacy of the relationship we have with our listeners. They take our words and our stories and our voices, and they put them in earphones or earbuds, even inside their car. It's just a giant sound pod. They put it in their most intimate space between their ears inside their heads.
Yeah.
And it's a great honor to be put there, but it comes with awesome responsibility. And I suddenly found I was in a creative world that it was wonderful. You could do anything you wanted. It was expansive, and I own everything.
Mm-hmm.
Own everything.
Right.
Now, doing The Donor, a DNA horror story, my first podcast, that's 7 episodes, highly recommended. We'll tell you where you can find it shortly. Doing the background research, I met a bunch of people in the donor conceived world just to get a sense of what the world looks like from their perspective. I have no idea there was a donor conceived world of people. Who the fuck knew? One of the people who gave me wonderful background, her name is Donna Hall. Donna learned at 40 that she was donor conceived, blew her mind. But when Donna told me her own story, I said, Donna, you're a podcast editor yourself. She said, yeah, I know. I've been trying to figure out how to do it. She has an amazing story. Another story, oh my God, but a hard story to tell. It really requires a storyteller. How do you tell this story? And Donna grew up in the 80s and 90s in a lower tier crime family outside of Philadelphia. And she tells the story. She's a wonderful storyteller. She's not an ounce of self-pity. It's a story of survival, but also of empowerment.
Mm-hmm.
And again, she was willing to tell the story with granular honesty.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the hall closet. And once the hall closet was going, I realized this is the business I want to be in. Now, I've got 4 podcasts out in the world. I've got a dozen more in production.
I love it.
And a key to this is, and we're getting some advertising on our podcast. We're, beginning to build it. It takes time. You have to be patient. A lot of these podcasts, most of them would make great movies. And a lot of the ones that I still have in development are projects that I wanted to do as movies and TV series. And I thought, no, do them as a podcast first. Now, here's the thing. When you go and you pitch a TV series, a movie, you're trying to sell the IP. You're trying to impress upon this executive, what's the IP? What's the intellectual property? What's the concept? What's the franchise? If you do it as a podcast, you're putting the IP right on the table. It's right there in the podcast where the audience can see it. We're advertisers. And whereas the previous model had me going as a seller, going singing and dancing, dog and pony show. Hey, Mr. Executive, can you please understand the IP? Now that's not going to happen because the IP is there, and these are risk averse people. The executives, trying to get them to use their imaginations is fraught. But they don't have to use their imagination now. They could say to their boss, "Well, hey, it was a very successful podcast."
Right.
Really and truly, I see podcasting as a legitimate way to flip the power dynamic away from the money and back to the creatives, because we can produce the whole thing ourselves.
Yeah.
We put it on the table and we own it all.
Yeah.
And
that's pretty powerful.
It is revolutionary. We have so much power in our hands. And so to get to the end of this creative journey, really, for me, it's not just about getting back in the saddle. It is, I was getting back on the saddle at a time when a new world was coming into being. That's what podcasting is. And if you look at the money flowing into it, it is limitless potential. Now, it's all about the content.
Sure.
The bottom line is make great content and then be willing to be patient, because perseverance is super important.
Yeah. What a fascinating journey into arrive where you are today and the potential of the future. This has been fascinating to hear, and I thoroughly have enjoyed every moment of it. I have one last question for you.
Please, please, please.
What does it feel like in your body to be creative?
I'm at one with myself. It's like a pitchfork perfectly tuned. You tap it and it goes. I walk around in a perpetual state of bliss. And it's the lamotrigine that just keeps the darkness in a box. It doesn't make me happy. I've got a wonderful therapist, but that's perspective.
Yeah.
someone always checking your work is very important.
Yeah.
I consume copious amounts of THC. I from the start of the day to the end of my day. Yes, I'm a cannabis user, but that just focuses me.
Mm.
Completely different from what I ever expected to be when I started it out.
Yeah.
Completely different.
I love
And
it.
I'm especially glad that I'm still here to be on this journey because yeah,
Yeah.
I came within literal inches of bullshitting myself to death.
Mhm. Yeah. The
One
powerful
of the other
choice to make to stop doing that and choose something else.
I was quite convinced that my family would be just fine without me.
Mhm.
There was insurance money, so that would
Yeah.
make everything better. Well, that was nonsense, bullshit.
Mhm.
When when I suddenly, it occurred to me I'd come within literal inches of bullshitting myself to death. I thought that was hilarious. And I started writing a book called How to Live Bullshit Free, a Practical Guide to Not Killing Yourself.
Okay.
That is also on the immediate horizon. I've written the whole book. I'm living the last chapter, but I've finally decided it's time to finish writing it. And so I'm hoping sometime early next year, I'll self-publish that. And that'll be linked to a podcast called How to Live Bullshit Free.
I love it. That's
It's
amazing.
Everything ties together.
It does. It
Everything ties
is.
together.
Well, if people want to listen to all the podcasts that you have talked about, where can they do that? How can they find you? Give us the promotion.
The easiest place to find everything that I'm doing is I've got a website. My company is called Costard and Touchstone Productions. So https://costardand and Touchstone touchstone.com. In my brief acting career, I performed in 2 Shakespearean plays. I performed the part of Costard in Love's Labor's Lost, and I performed the part of Touchstone in As You Like It. Both Costard and Touchstone are wise fools who speak truth to power. And that's what my little company is all about. We are a wise fool, I hope, speaking truth to power.
I love it.
So come to costardandtouchstone.com, and that's really, you'll see we have all kinds of stories. We've got The Donor, true crime. Sage Wellness Within is about Chinese medicine. We touch everything.
Fantastic. I will put all these links in show notes so people have very easy access. And thank you, Alan, so much for sharing your stories and joining me today. It has been such a treat.
The pleasure has been mine, really.
Thank you.
Thanks for listening to the Sustaining Creativity Podcast. We'd love to keep in touch, so follow us on Facebook and Instagram. We are at Sustaining Creativity. Make sure to subscribe to the podcast wherever you listen to podcasts. Tag your friends and family so they can listen too. We love to hear from you, so leave your reviews, comments, and questions. Check out our website, sustainingcreativity.com, for upcoming offerings and creativity coaching. Tune in Tuesdays for our next episode. And remember, with creativity, anything's possible.